Hello, students. This is Caleb Weigel again. It's great seeing you all again. I want to thank you all for sending me a bunch of really great, fantastic questions. And I'm so glad you're so interested in writing, which is what I'm interested in. So Miss Wingard sent me several questions that I'm going to answer for you that you all submitted to her, and I appreciate the questions, and I'm hoping you might get something from this. So the first question is what is your favorite book that you wrote? My favorite book that I wrote is a book called Death on the Causeway. I like this one compared to some of my other ones because it was more adventurous, and I enjoy adventures, and there's a lot of real good twists and turns that happen in it. That but by the time I was finished writing it, I felt my own pulse pounding, which is what you want a reader to feel. With some of the twists and turns that happen in it, and the subject matter, which is basically Myrtle Beach restaurants, which is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. That's so far is my favorite book. The one I'm writing right now is right now. I'm about halfway through it, and I think it's going to end up being my favorite by the time I'm finished with it because I know what's going to happen in it. The next question is, what is your favorite book that you've read? So when I was your age, there was a book by Roald Dahl called James and the Giant Peach. That was my favorite book growing up. As I got older and started reading more adult type books, my favorite book that I've read probably in the past 20 years is a book called The Lion's Game by Nelson DeMille. It's about spies and terrorists and um, a good adventure, a lot of intrigue, and the way it's written with some of the humor that's involved in the main character is kind of how I base my character in my Myrtle Beach series. And so that has been my favorite book that I've read in a long time. But there's others along the way. I read the Lord of the Rings series trilogy every once at least once a decade. There's a series by science fiction author by Arthur C. Clarke. It's the 2010 series. I read those about once every 10 years just because I enjoyed them whenever I was younger. So the next question is, what year did you write your first book? I wrote my first book in between 2004, 2005. I worked for my uncle in a hearing aid business in Greenville, South Carolina, and there was a lot of downtime, so I read a lot of books, and he told me one day stop reading books because it didn't look good for him or for his business if I was reading books all the time in front of his clients. So I started writing. I wrote my first book, Moment of Impact, um, while I was sitting in his office in 2003, 2004. I never intended to have it published, but my friends and family who read it, thought it was pretty good, and they said, "See if you can get it published." So I did, and here we are, 20 years later, just about. So the next question is, can you make a book about our school, please? Haha. Um, that would be fun. I have an idea for a book that takes place basically in the car pickup line while we're waiting to pick you all up from school. I spend a lot of time there waiting to pick my son up, Colin, who's in first grade. Uh, and while sitting there, my daydream, I think about different things that could happen. And I have an idea for one, but I seriously doubt that the powers that be at your school, your principal, would like me writing my type of story at your school. But hey, I'm open to it. If your principal would like to have the conversation, Miss Wingert, let's talk. Um, yeah, that would be fun though. It'd be a lot of fun. No kids would be harmed though, just parents. Let's see. Are there any books that you have tried to publish but they didn't go through? The answer to that is no, kind of. I had a book that I started, actually two books that I've partially completed in the past, before I decided for one reason or another I didn't want to finish them. Either with one, I didn't like the way the book was going. I didn't know how to fix it because I didn't know as much about writing as I do now. where I would have planned it out better before I started. And there was another book, an action adventure novel that I was writing called The Legend of Drunken Jack, that I put it aside when I had the idea for the Myrtle Beach series. My publisher said do that one instead because it's a better idea and it might sell better, which it has. So I have that one sitting aside, but I might go back and finish that one at some point and have it cross over with my Myrtle Beach series. So I haven't been unsuccessful at publishing a book that I finished, to answer your question. What type of tools do you work with to help with your writing? Mostly I use Microsoft Word. There's a lot of review features, like editing features that you can use with it. It's really smart about like pointing out like when I miss a comma or I have something written incorrectly, and it autocorrects a lot of times whenever I mess up letters or whatever. So it's very, very helpful. There's other programs that I've used called Pro Writing Aid and to a lesser degree Grammarly that helps with my grammar, make sure everything's right. Um, Sometimes I will use Chat GPT, the AI tool, to brainstorm something. I don't use it. I don't like go there to get writing. I don't say write a scene for me because that's cheating. That's not fun at all. Um, I use that just to brainstorm, or if I need to know, like I'll say, give me 5 names of somebody who was born in 1985, just so I can get an idea of names that were popular in that time, so I can name a character. Sometimes it's something simple as that, but I don't use AI to write for me like some authors try to do. Do you have any books that take place in another country? I don't have one that takes place in another country. I wrote a short story several years ago that was published in an anthology. An anthology is where somebody puts together a bunch of short stories, and it was a science fiction little short story that takes place in another solar system far away. But as far as books that I've written that take place in another country, not in another country, but I have a scene in my action adventure novel, The Search for the Fountain of Youth, that takes place in outer space. Not another country, just out of this world, literally. What is your favorite part of being an author? My favorite part of being an author is telling you stories. I go home and I make stuff up every day. People ask me, what do I do? I make stuff up. I mean, how cool is that? And people pay me for it. Um, and the other part I enjoy is being able to give readers something, fun, something entertaining, something fun to to you know just a fun escape for them. I enjoy meeting with readers and seeing their responses to the books and how much they're into the characters and into the stories and how much that means to them. And I have people from all over the country now that whenever I have a new book come out, they arrange their travel plans to come to Myrtle Beach just to go inside with a release of a book, which is super humbling for me. And I couldn't have imagined this 4 years ago before I started this series. But yeah, my favorite parts is just talking to people like you, talking to kids, and talking to other readers, and being able to tell the stories of stuff that's stuck in my brain. That way I can get it out. All right, so the last question is, what advice would you give to those who want to be an author? So I get asked this question a lot, mainly among adults. But what I can tell you is basically come up with a story that you want to tell, and think about the beginning, middle, and end, and go from there. Do some research if you need to, but basically you know how your story starts and how it ends. Those are the two biggest parts of any of my stories. Is I want to know the first thing that people see and the last thing that people see, and a few big events that happen in the middle, and basically the gist of the story. But the biggest thing is like with anything you do in life, you got to practice. And so if you don't write, if you don't practice your writing, you're not going to get good at it. And so what I advise people to do, if you want to write a book, figure out your story first. Don't have to necessarily do like a big long outline. I don't do that either because I hate that. It stifles creativity. But come up with your story and then sit down and set a word count goal, a daily word count goal, where you write 200 words a day, 500 words a day, or like me, 1 to 2,000 words a day. Or that way, every day you're going to be sitting in that seat. You're going to write for a certain amount of time, and you're going to continue to improve on your craft. And you can't get better unless you practice. So those are all the questions. Thank you so much for asking them. If you ever have any more, just have Miss Wingard send them along. Thank you all, and have a good day, and happy writing, happy reading.